Hi everyone, I'm Kingsley Burnett. I'm a fourth year mechanical engineering apprentice. I currently work in the Actuation Centre of Excellence. Prior to joining the business, I did a BTEC in mechanical engineering for 2 years and applied to MBDA.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kingsley. Kingsley, if I could start with you, could you maybe just talk about why you chose an apprenticeship rather than going directly to university, perhaps?
Yeah, I'm a quite a practical based learner, so I struggle a lot with independent learning and like theory based learning. So I thought an apprenticeship will give me sort of more exposure of like guided teaching rather than sort of relying on myself to get through the majority of the content, um, which I guess is kind of like what the uni structure is really. You go to lectures and you sort of have to develop your own understanding with it. And also because my dad did not want to get into 60 grand's worth of debt, so he was quite enthusiastic to say go and try an apprenticeship, and yeah, I feel like that was the right choice.
It's an important point to make, Kingsley, isn't it, in regards to the debt? Because I think sometimes people have preference to go to university, and we understand that's just a different pathway, right? But I think that when we talk about apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships, for example, you're quite right. You get paid a salary, of course, and we pay for your degree, we pay for your training, we pay for your qualification, so there is no debt. So that's an important point to make as well, for sure.
And we're also guaranteed a job.
Absolutely, Kingsley. Absolutely, it's really important to stress as well. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you for that. Kingsley, from your perspective, what do you think is the reality of completing an apprenticeship?
I think it's quite challenging. I think a lot of people don't appreciate the fact that you're doing a full-time job as well as a full-time qualification, and it
Yeah,
requires a lot of like dedication and personal balance. Um, and that's the more challenging side of it. But also, it's quite fun to actually experience what you're learning in college and practically apply it.
yeah.
So similar to like what Josie's saying, it's nice to like get the experience as well as study, because if you don't use it with a lot of like the technical stuff, you lose it. So it's
I
good to
think it's a
carry
really
over.
good point, Kingsley, isn't it? You know, regards to the pet, we're talking a lot about how powerful it is to kind of learn in the business,
Mm.
have that kind of that hands-on experience, if you like, and applying kind of what you learn in university. Bring that back into MBDA for sure. I think it's really powerful. And actually, what you learn in MBDA back into your degree or into college, for example, again, that really is quite helpful, isn't it, to the academia side just as well as the hands-on piece as well, right?
Yeah. And especially like if you're still figuring out whereabouts you want to go in terms of your role, like having the exposure of learning the subjects as well as applying them in the different areas, it gives you more of a reality for how much you're actually going to like it. Like I initially thought I would really like design. Now I know I don't want to sit at a desk doing Creo all day. I like a bit of hands-on stuff as well. So gives you that exposure, I'd say.
And I think, Kingsley, I think that's a really good point to make as well, isn't it? You know, people come into the company perhaps with a reasonable idea of what they want to do, and I think that evolves and it changes in over the apprenticeship 4 years. I would suggest not everyone, but that does evolve, and I think we sometimes you can end up in a place where you love and you really enjoy, but you never would have thought you that was where you'd end up, right, at the start of your apprenticeship, for example.
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely the experience I had.
Good. Um, So one last question, I think, because I appreciate there may be some Q&As at the end as well, perhaps, Maria. One last question to both of you. What advice would you give to parents of a person interested in doing apprenticeships? Excellent. Kingsley, what about yourself?
I would say you just have to be honest with yourself, really. Like, what are you trying to achieve? What is your learning style? Um, because like I said, an apprenticeship can be quite demanding. Um, and also understanding that it might not be the time to do an apprenticeship. So just understand what you're going to take on. Really, be prepared, like what Josie's saying. You know, there can be quite a demand at times, especially when there's a lot of exams or like there's a lot of deadlines. And that can also clash with work stuff as well. So you really have to sort of think about how you're going to manage that before you step into it, because it's a lot easier to do it that way than to step in it and try and manage it while juggling the plates. I mean, like what Josie said, even in my experience of joining, I initially thought I was only doing a HNC and a HND, and I ended up doing another 2 qualifications. And not to say that they were out of my capacity to do, but it was an extra sort of piece of work to take in amongst other things. So just being aware of things like that, really, like I probably could have researched that a bit more before and implemented that into the plan.
Yeah. Yeah, really good points. No, thanks, Josie, and thanks, Kingsley, for your input and insights. To be fair, that's really helpful for us. Just to finish off, I guess we are, for those that are or have sons, daughters, for example, that are at that age where they may be considering for next year. I've touched on the fact that we are open for apprenticeships this year or for next year's intake. So if you head for MBDA careers.co.uk, hopefully you'll find lots of information in addition to what we spoke about today, but hopefully that will be useful to most of you on the call.
Yeah, so in terms of the training in general, for the studying part of the course, we done our first year 5 days a week at college. I don't think the scheme is exactly the same now. I believe it's only 1 day, 1 full day at college, and the on-site training is usually either desk-based or virtual, or if it's something practical, then it's just sort of in person for like manual handling training, for example, or like using cranes and hoist equipment. It's usually specific to what it is. In terms of balancing that, I'm not the most organized person, so my balance was quite chaotic to a lot of others. I had a lot of late nights and overnights and weekend studying, in terms of managing my college work. And during my work day, I'd sort of just keep work time as work time. If I didn't have a lot of work on during the day, I'd usually be able to do some of my college work during the working day, as long as like my manager was comfortable with it as well. And we also
Yeah.
get 5 study days a year. So if there are periods where it is getting quite heavy, aside from like taking leave, you can also have a study day. So that gives you a bit of extra room.
I'd like to say thank you so much for attending this evening and our guest speakers. It's been a really, really informative session. So thank you very much for that. And I wish everyone a really good evening.